support team performance. The enabler for support team performance is appraise team member performance against key performance indicators.
And a project duty here is to acquire and manage project resources by following the resource and procurement management plans in order to meet project requirements. Now think of that for another second. Emily said, appraise team member performance. In order to appraise team members, you need team members, right? Well, let's talk about this overarching task, support team performance. Emily, could you walk us through how we could support team member growth?
Sure. Encouraging professional development, creating a plan for that development, pairing employees with mentors, and helping them build their networks. Along with that is challenging employees with assignments because that helps them develop. It all fits together so well here.
Gotcha, Emily. Now, one of the things that you mentioned in the very beginning, if we can take a look at that one more time, is this term, key performance indicators. Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. We often call them KPIs. We hear about KPIs all the time. These are a set of quantifiable measures that a company or an industry uses to gauge and compare performance in terms of meeting their strategic and operational goals.
Got it. So for those folks who may not have read the PMBOK guide in the past, KPIs are used for one of the outputs that we get from develop team, and that is something known as team performance assessments. So Emily takes us back to this term. What exactly is TPA, team performance assessment?
Well, the end goal is to identify areas for improving the project team's performance. Training, coaching, mentoring, assistance, any other necessary changes fit in here. Team performance assessments typically follow development of the project team. This is used to determine the team's improvement. And finally, team performance assessments are so that the team projects or the project team's effectiveness can be determined.
Gotcha. So determining the project team's performance could lead to one actually getting these KPIs. So some examples of the KPIs Emily talked about are things such as human capital value added, employee engagement level, employee churn rate, absenteeism Bradford factor, 360-degree feedback scores, salary competitiveness ratio, training return on investment, and productivity. Now, while we're sharing these metrics as examples, we're not asking you to go memorize them or cram them because they'll not come in the exam in this fashion. But as we go through the course, we'll talk about these a little bit more, which takes us to the second enabler.
1.3.2, support and recognize team member growth and development.
So you had touched on this, Emily, and the project duty again is to first acquire that team member, those team members, and then following the resource management plan or the procurement management plan, ensure that these folks are developed and make sure that they grow as far as the project needs them. Let's go to our next one.
Sure. Enabler 1.3.3 is determine appropriate feedback. What approach is the appropriate feedback?
So in determining the appropriate feedback approach, again, the project manager needs to acquire the team members. When you acquire the team members, you got to develop the team members. When you develop them, the next thing that comes is the leadership of these team members. We call it managed team, but it's really more of a leadership type of job. And there are ways that you can develop this approach. First of all, you got to observe and converse with the team to understand the best way to generate feedback. But when we talk about coaching and feedback, you want to maintain and enhance their self-esteem. You want to listen actively to them and respond with concern. You want to ask them for help and encourage their involvement. You need to help them to see that they are important and they're needed. You want to share thoughts, feelings, and rationale with the team members. And you want to provide support without removing responsibility. So there's quite a lot for the project manager to juggle. And in closing, what we covered so far in supporting team Performance is appraisal, support and recognize, determine the appropriate feedback method, and then verify performance improvements. And that is 1.3.4. So let's talk about the final one here, 1.3.4. Here we go. So verify performance improvements. And this one is 1.3.4. And this is comparing their performance to agreed upon goals. And we also need to remember regarding this, it is an iterative process. And that brings us to the end of task 3. Next, we'll be moving into task 4. Remember, we're still in the people. People is very big. And remember, the people presence on the exam is 42% of the exam.